Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Dan Clare. I'm the Chief Communications and Outreach Officer for DAV. And I'm going to be totally indulgent and waste a bunch of your time up front, and then Rob Lewis is going to come up after that and give you information you can use. So let's start off with this. Last year, I'm serious about being ultra indulgent. There will be blackmail photos. We will not post those online. We're going to sanitize the presentation, so if you want the blackmail photos, go ahead and take pictures of the slide. I rarely say that, but in this case, it's very applicable. Last year, and we talk a lot up here, and we say we a lot, and I tell people don't say I a lot, but I'm going to say I a whole lot because I'm really working towards probably getting fired coming out of this presentation. So bear with me while I go through it. Last year I marked 20 years of service with DAV. Thank you. But I also marked 30 years of partnership with your own Rob Lewis from DAV, everybody. Rob and I, we were privates first class at the Defense Information School in Fort Benjamin Harrison. Let me give you a look at what we looked like back then. Oh, where's Rob? Rob disappeared. I'm probably going to have to do that a lot. Look at that badass. Of course, I'm not talking about Rob when I say that. I'm talking about the one on the left. You can tell that back then I had a mind for outreach and communications because I had cropped out the BFA on the end of my rifle because all we were doing was shooting off blanks, and which my wife found out later on was also the case. We don't have children. Anyway, that was back then. I wanted my girlfriend in Lincoln, Nebraska to think that I was probably at war. I wasn't at war. I was just at Camp Pendleton. But there we go. So 30 years ago, Rob Lewis and I met. Here's one of our photos from our class photos. See if you can pick us out. Rob's the one with the neck. There it is. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Look at Rob's neck over there. It was a feature of all of our class. Where are we at? You see? Okay. There's another one. See, Rob's neck appears very prominently in this photo as well, if you can spot him. He looks very tough there. Now, I don't know what this means, but HR asked me a lot of time to stay away from it. So NSFW has some sort of meaning. I do want to say that if you are offended by half-naked DAV employees, you're going to want to go ahead and head towards the exits in the back because you will see that. Quick warning, a nipple may appear, or a portion of one, depending on how we're cropped out on the slides. Here we go, let's see. Have you guys ever thought about what you would say to yourself if you could go back in time? Don't never volunteer for anything, that's right. If I were talking to myself back then, I would have said, moisturizer and sunblock, man. I mean, tune in a little bit, and here we go. Let's see. Lay off the carbs. Lay off the carbs. And the other one is don't smoke cigarettes. I would have told myself back then, do not smoke cigarettes, but it was actually the act of smoking cigarettes that led to Rob and I's first collaboration in public service announcements. Here it comes. This was our first one. Where is it? Oh, there we go. And you'll notice it's a very creative way to tell people not to smoke cigarettes. There's a bear behind us there. These young Lance Corporals enjoying a weekend away in Virginia with a bunch of other Marines having a good time. But that was so successful that we didn't quit smoking, but we decided to do a couple more. Similar, part of the same campaign. Where are we at? It's going to make me do that every time. There we go. Here's another one. Look at that, enjoy it, take it in, take photos. If you want to blackmail us later, go ahead. And then if that wasn't enough, we did one more here. There we go. Now, ironically, all of the animals featured in these photos are now dead as a result of smoking cigarettes. For 2 of them, the other one was, I think, the result of Y2K anxiety-related death, because that was the 90s. Okay, so Rob and I, heading out of that, we get out of our Defense Information School, we go to our separate ways. Rob went to Parris Island, I went to Marine Corps Air Station El Toro. No lessons on taxidermy to follow, but we came back together for our final year in the Marine Corps at American Forces Network in Okinawa. And during that time at AFN, we were assigned 3 public service announcements a month and 3 news stories a week. So we were creating public service announcements. You can imagine how crappy they were if you have to crap out 3 of them a month. But we were doing this stuff years before we started at DAV. And here we go, more. There we go. You can tell how hard we worked in this photo. This is that last year we were spending it in Air Force billeting, which they called dorms, and we called heaven. My wife, I met my wife coming when I checked in at Japan, and she said she was complaining about how hardcore the Air Force was, and she said, "You should see these rooms. They're not barracks, they're dorms," and we would have fit 4 Marines in there. And I said, "Thank God we're not, because I like my space." But here we are enjoying ourselves. That woman on the couch in the middle there is my lovely wife, Amy, who's not here today. Many of you have seen her on Blink cameras in a past presentation I did. Here we go. We were very hardcore people back then. Here you go. You can tell that we're always focused, always doing our thing to support the Marine Corps. Coming out of this, Rob joined the Army Guard in the late 90s. I joined the Air National Guard in 2001, a couple months before that party changed, when we were attacked as a country and went along. But man, honestly, I went to work at an ad agency in Southern California, and Rob called me up and got me to work at DAV, so I do want to give a big cheers to my good friend Rob Lewis. Please give him a round of applause, everybody. Rob was in my wedding, I was in Rob's wedding, and we've been working together all these years. It's been great. Here's another one of Rob and I, and a big blank spot up in the middle there. I'm grateful for all the people we've met along the way, and thank you all for indulging me on all that. Here's the rest of the presentation. All right, if that wasn't indulgent enough, the next part is going to be extremely boring for all of you. But I just keep at it. I don't care. I have no shame about embarrassing Rob, putting all this stuff out in front of a large group of people. When Rob and I started DAV, DAV was at that time kind of a backwater. DAV, after 9/11, had taken the fundraising momentum that it had and said, well, we're a great charity. We're not going to fundraise harder. We're just going to keep at our mission. And that was honestly, there was good and bad things that came with that. One of the good things about that was that DAV was staying true to what we were meant to do. One of the challenges of that were that a lot of other charities were coming along and getting a bigger mind share, and we weren't thinking at the time necessarily about how important that mind share is in the veterans, in our own veterans community. Coming out of that, we were working with a lot of great Vietnam veterans. And we'd sit there and say, well, I saw this that this other group's doing, and I saw this that this other group's doing, and we would say, well, we can do better. We could do things more efficiently. We could do some big things for DAV, and we really have. We had no idea at that time that DAV would be capable of earning over $50 million a year in donated media, which is incredible. We had no idea about UFC, but it's been an honor to be part of a team that's built all that stuff. But going to the other side of my presentation, I found out just in the last 2 or 3 years that my family happens to be Nothing I looked into, just my stepmom was doing this genealogy stuff, and we found out that our family was related to a lot of the first pilgrims, the first Europeans to come over to the United States. That's why we have this really weird slide up here, because that's what people thought they looked like back then. So I find out that I was actually related to Miles Standish. That's Gampy Standish there. I'm a direct descendant of Miles Standish. He was the first military person. He was the military representative for the Pilgrims. He was one of 11 people that I happen to be related to. One of them was an indentured servant. He wasn't there by choice, but ended up becoming a part of the community, kind of ending his indenture and everything like that. And if you look really closely at Miles Standish, that's, they weren't taking a lot of selfies back then in the 1600s, but if you look really close, you can see the family resemblance. Where are we at? There we go. You can see that we are clearly related, and he was actually, of all the things that he'd done, the most important, of course, was being featured on an episode of South Park. Well, I went to Department of Massachusetts convention this year. Thank you, Department of Mass. We got any Mass people out there? Give us, yeah, there we go. Had a great time at the Massachusetts convention, but one of the things that I did, we took some time and visited Plymouth. So I got to connect with all these old white people, or where they were, who we grew up with. And I meet this woman, and she does that thing where you're talking to a historical reenactor. Has anyone talked to a historical reenactor before? It can be really interesting. It can be a lesson in pure jackassery, and that was my experience. I'm talking to this woman, and I said, do you have any kids? Do you have kids? And she said, why, I don't, sir, but there are some in yonder field. Are you looking for a goat? And you're like, you could have just called me an a-hole, and we could have gotten past that, but all right, this is what we're going to do. Well, I asked her who she, she's actually portraying someone, and she happened to be portraying my grandmother, like one of my grandmothers, Sarah Alden, who was Miles Standish's wife. I think my grandma Standish was a little bit thinner, but I wasn't shaming anyone, you'll be glad to know, but I was annoyed. So one of the questions I asked her, and this is serious, was I said, what will happen to you if your husband is injured in all of these battles that he's fighting in? What will happen to you? This is the Pilgrims. These are the first Europeans to come over to the United States. And you could tell that she had zero training in historical reenactor school or whatever the hell they go through. And she says, I'll tell you what would happen. I don't want to think about it. And I was like, well, that's the historical reenactor version of my dog ate my homework, You haven't thought about it. You haven't put any time into this whatsoever. But it was really interesting to me that even when we're talking about the start of our country, they had to figure out something, right, to take care of these folks. They were fighting in battles left and right. They had to take care of them while they were fighting, but they'd go back, and it was just seen as kind of part of your duty. Where are we at? So people were being injured. One kind of an interesting part of this whole thing was when you're there in Plymouth, there's also a Wampanoag settlement there. And when you talk to the native folks about that, they said, well, we're a communal society, and taking care of a wounded wounded warrior at that time was just baked into what they did. That was how they took care of their society. Those people were revered. You were revered if you were a disabled veteran. Which is kind of a little bit different. One of the things we were able to do was visit the USS Constitution. It fought in the Battle of 1812. One of the first casualties of that war was experienced on the bow of this ship. We were celebrating the 250th anniversary of the United States Marine Corps. I was just trying to find out if any of you are still following along, because I've really taken a circuitous route around all this stuff. But so we're out there, and I'm immersed in history. I'm there with Coleman. Dan Stack is the one who kind of got us out there. And while we were on the ship, where is he at? We talked to this historical reenactor who was a doctor. And so I'm asking him, well, what did you do? How did you take care of people? And we actually did a Facebook Live on this. I don't know if anyone saw it. It's out there somewhere, but he's talking about how they get the early tourniquet, it actually looked a lot better than the tourniquets that we were getting before 9/11 when I was in military service. They had better tourniquets than we did, I thought. But he was also talking about all the different ways that people could get hurt, all the different ways people could get sick. You're living on a ship. You got more bugs in your flour than you have flour, so at least you have a protein source, I guess. But people would get sick. They had animals on the ship. So people are, I'm sure that everything was very hygienic and they had pressure washers and everything to clean the deck of that ship, but they weren't walking in chicken poop all the time, but here we were. One of the things I asked Coleman while we're doing this, because I'm getting all geeked out on this Miles Standish stuff, I say, if you think about it, Miles Standish, one of the first European military folks to come to the United States, and he came over on a ship, and I said, Coleman, does that basically make me a direct descendant of one of the first Marines in the United States? And he didn't even dignify my question with an answer. He looked at me, where are you at? He looked at me with a sneer. It was like a sneer in a Southie accent. He didn't even have to say anything, and I knew that he thought I was so full of shit. Which is a great thing about being in Boston. People are very honest and upfront about their feelings on different things. So a couple weeks later, and this is in the course of DAV travels. Now I'm losing new graphics every time I pull up a slide, which is nice. One of the things I did, I visit the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia, for the Warrior Scholarship Program, Warrior Scholar Project. And they take people who are trying to get back into school, and they reacclimate them to what college is going to be like for veterans. It's a really neat program. But one of the things they were talking about was the Spartans. Of course, you go to college, they start talking about the ancient Greeks because we can get all these lessons from history. And if you were in ancient Greece, if you were a Spartan, I should say, if you were a Spartan, your military service was compulsory. If you weren't up to military service, you would be killed as a baby. That's an absolute thing that they did. They were a warrior culture. Young men at 7 years of age began their military service. They had 7 years of boot camp and initial training. By 14, they're ready to go into full military service as soldiers, ready to go fight those wars and paint their abs for future movies, which was a great way to show the enemy how very powerful you were. But these Spartans, I start thinking, well, what did the Spartans do when they had injured folks? How did they take care of their injured folks? Nothing out there about it. You don't see anything out there about it. What did they do to take care of their veterans, injured or not? And they did have something there. If you made it to 58 years old in the Spartan army, you would be given a pension that was out of this world. You would be an elder statesman. You would have money galore. You'd live in this beautiful house. The bad news is that once you join the army, your chances of making it to 60 in ancient Sparta was 5%. 5% of their soldiers made it to the age of 60. So they were doing things that were a little bit different. While I was there, I got in a flight early, and I go to Jamestown, because all that stuff's right in the same neck of the woods. And at Jamestown, I talked to folks, and I see these two soldiers. They were about Lance Corporal in age. They had the full metal codpiece on, which looked extremely comfortable. And I said to those guys, what's going to happen to your families if you guys get hurt while you're in military service? And these reenactors, as if I didn't take enough BS in Plymouth, they tell me, well, we don't have wives, sir. So I said, well, great, you guys aren't doing your homework either, are you? But when I went to Colonial Williamsburg, one of the things that they talked about, I found these two soldiers, and the guy was completely dialed in. I said, well, what happens to you guys if you get hurt? And he said, it ain't good. What's going to happen to us is not good. At that time, they had what was called the Chelsea Hospital. in the Royal Hospital in Chelsea in London. So the colonials were getting hurt and surviving wounds, just like we have, going back to the very first start of American history, going back to colonial times, they were getting hurt. Those folks they were surviving their wounds in a lot of cases, but there was no healthcare system for them. Healthcare was evolving at that time. Some of the greatest advances, just like it is today, were happening thanks to what was going on in the military. But all they wanted to do was get people fit enough to fight so they could go back and fight some more. So Chelsea had this pretty decent hospital for the time, but no one got in. And that's where they got, back in those days, the meme. One of the first memes in history was the beggar soldier, was the soldier who'd been hurt, the soldier who couldn't go on. If you were in the military, you had no pension. You would serve to the end of your time, and you better hope that you saved enough to take care of your spouse and your family, or you were SOL, basically. So what my point with all of this is that we are part of this legacy. I don't know, none of us can know what it was like to live in the 1600s. And we can judge those folks, and we should look at them and judge what they did. We have no idea, no one in this room, what it's like to be on a ship and watch half of the people with us die. But whether you were brought over to the United States as a slave or you were brought over on the Mayflower, that was your experience. That was your experience. We have no idea what it's like to live in a country and have your entire town wiped out by a disease, and then these religious zealots come over, squat on your land, and what they'll do is go ahead and they're starving to death because they brought no sense with them. They had no idea how to survive. They had no plan for that. They took as many people who weren't pilgrims, who weren't in their religious sect, to go do that. And we have no idea what it's like to have someone like that invade your country. And what they did was they were starving, so they took the seed corn. That was one of the first interactions that Native Americans and pilgrims had. They took their seed corn when they found it in storage. What we can do, though, is we can look at history and we can say, how are we going to take care of veterans? We honored Ken David the other day, and I don't know if Ken's in here or not, but someone like Ken is at the heart of who we are as an organization. That's a real hero. We can debate about Miles Standish. They called him the shrimp back then because he was short, and he'd turn red when he got angry, which made him a pretty good shrimp, I guess. But when you look at someone like Ken David, what we do know is that Ken David didn't do what he had to do. He did a whole lot more. He answered the call of duty, and he did more. And what we find in chapters is the chapters who win, the chapters who are winning on outreach, the chapters who are doing a better job getting people to their meetings, the chapters who are engaging volunteers at good levels, they're doing that extra step. There's courage and there's duty, and they're following the duty part of that all the way through. And that's part of what Rob's going to do. I hope I embarrass the crap out of him up here with the great photos of the trout, the bear, and the beautiful smoking venison. So I will turn it over to Rob, and I'll be up here for questions afterwards, but thank you all for your time. If you have to, you just bring it back one and go forward.
Does that work? I'm going to do it.
Okay.
Guys, I'm going to start off with something. It's kind of hard to talk about. I know we just had this presentation. I thought it was pretty fantastic. I've never actually met this person before in my life. And I have no idea what he's talking about. But in all seriousness, Dan and I were doing a presentation today, reminded me of when we met back in the Defense Information School. I had such a disgusting case of athlete's foot that he used my foot. I actually put it up on a table in front of a classroom. He used it to do a presentation on trench foot. And yeah, I was thinking about that last night when my computer crashed. My hard drive was basically evaporated. I lost my entire presentation. I was like, thank God I got Dan. He's finally paying me back by getting you guys all warmed up and having all that great stuff to share at the beginning. So again, it's hard to follow that, right? I don't know, how I can possibly to match up to pictures of Dan dressed as Miles Standish, but I'm thankful to have him for the opening. I'm here to talk about DAV's assets, our channels, how the work that you are doing drives what we do, and the tools that we have to provide you to promote your work at the local level. And of course, we'll start with DAV Magazine. It remains the flagship, the main hub for the coverage of the organization from the national level. We're very proud of the content. We're proud of the appearance. Every edition means something to us. We spend a lot of time, sometimes, even fighting like family over what goes inside of it. I see, out of the corner of my eye, I see Elizabeth V. Pompey down there nodding. She's one of our most fierce warriors when it comes to some of that stuff. Doreen as well. It's a calling card in VA hospitals. It goes to congressional offices. It's our official record. But also, please know that I think it's special that we have this magazine, partially because it's absolutely a challenge to put out a magazine. Even though it only comes out every 2 months, the print costs alone are a significant investment. So we really think that it is worthwhile. So that print cost is important because it actually keeps us from expanding the size of the book, the size of the magazine itself. So as an organization, we are doing more and more and more. I mean, you heard Barry's presentation on Saturday. You heard Cody and Randy talking yesterday about how much we are doing as an organization, and we're trying to squeeze more and more into the same size space, and it can become a challenge. And I know that because I hear from many of you, probably some of you in this room, about things like chapter and department news, which we used to run a significant amount of in every edition of the magazine, right? And we just don't have that option as much as we used to. We still use it when we can, but we don't have that option as much. So we have been we want you to continue sending us those articles, right? Those pictures, everything that you're doing in your chapter, in your department. If you're doing, barbecues, if you have toy drives, if you have whatever it is that you're doing that you used to send, that used to make it in a magazine, go to the member news section of DAV's website. We share it on social media as well. And we are taking that, and it helps us kind of keep a pulse on what everybody is doing. So I feel that when we started running out of space in the magazine, maybe some of you stopped sending us quite as much stuff. You're like, hell, I'm not wasting my time sending it to them if they're not going to run it in a magazine. This is a new outlet. Our team has stood this up this year, and we are able to, again, we get more eyeballs on this because it's on the website and because of social media than we ever got in the magazine. So please don't stop sending those to us. And speaking of the website, I think we're going to speak of the website if it ever pops up here. Well, there was a photograph of the website I hear, I think. Back and forward. Oh, there it is. Look at that. Thanks, Dan. The website, again, millions of visits annually. It contains all the resources for members, and we'll talk more about those here in a minute. It's well suited for veterans and supporters who are being introduced to DAV for the first time. I think that maybe in the past the magazine or the website was specifically geared towards just kind of preaching to the choir, right? Talking to all of you. We've changed that up in the last couple of years because it's really important that we introduce ourselves to new audiences. We still have the things that you need on there, and we'll talk about those here in a second. But again, we've kind of changed the paradigm a little bit there. And next on the digital track, of course, is social media. So if you can, how many of you in here, your chapter or your department, you have a Facebook page? Okay, I want you to keep your hands up. Twitter, if you got Twitter, keep your hands up, okay? Instagram, do we have anybody that has all? Okay, good. LinkedIn, yeah. Threads and Twitch. I mean, hey, Threads, anybody in Threads? Yeah, I got Threads down here. Let's go. Coleman's got a Thread, so I didn't know that. All right. Yeah. That's a little bit different. And then, of course, Twitch, right? I don't know if any of you are using Twitch quite yet, and Kevin will be here to talk a little bit about that in a minute. But look, social media still matters. We need you to keep sharing your content and keep sharing our content, right? Because we have essentially built ourselves a massive audience on Facebook over the last 15, 20 years, however long it's been since we really started leaning into things like Facebook. But it also creates a prison for us. it's almost impossible to get all of our content onto the pages of our followers, and that's because Facebook and all the other social media, their algorithm has become monetized, right? We are what's being sold. If something's free, you guys heard this saying before, if something is free, you are what's being sold. And DAV is what our giant audience is, what is being sold. They're trying to get us to pay to reach all of you. So when you share our content, it's incredibly important. People are still spending an increasing amount of time online. I think I've heard something like at least 8 hours a day. They're meeting veterans and families where they already are when you're using social media. It lets you connect to members, supporters. It's a powerful tool, of course. I mean, you guys know all of this. I think I got a couple. There they are. When you're setting up your accounts, make sure that you're using a generic email, not a personal email for the easy access. Have an email that the chapter controls. I cannot tell you the amount of time, where's Michael at? There's Michael, raise your hand, Michael. Yeah, how many times this poor young man sitting up here in the front row has had to try to help a chapter who has lost control of their Facebook page. It happens all the time, and the majority of the time it's because they had someone that was in that position before. That person might have actually passed away, or they took off, or they are mad that they got voted out, or whatever happened, and they lost control of their social media page. Right, so that can happen. So use a generic email. Designate at least two admins. At least two admins. That will help you to avoid being locked out. And then, of course, there are platform requirements, Facebook and LinkedIn. You need a personal admin, you need an actual human being. Instagram and X, you just need a username and password. That's why all those people have burner Instagram accounts, because they're out there, you don't need anything to do it. Okay, let me do this again. There we go. Update your page regularly. Ensure it's easy to find and accurate. If it's not updated, if it's not easy to find, if it doesn't have your meeting location, your contact info, your website link, if it doesn't have all of those things, it's useless. It's as useless as the nipples you saw on me in those photos that Dan shared. That's how useless it is. Post engaging content. Use videos, event previews, photos that engage followers. Keep content on brand. Keep content on brand, please. Non-political, on-brand content on your Facebook pages, please. We use DAV logos. I haven't seen very many DAV red, white, and blue logos out there recently, so thank you for that. I appreciate it. I know it's taken some folks a little bit of time to switch over. Highlight key issues. Not just to veterans at large, but to veterans in your communities. You know what people are paying attention to in your communities. You know what's important where you live. Share that, not just the things that DAV's main page is sharing. Make it easy to find you. Again, using consistent naming formats. DAV chapter, your chapter number, city, and state. Departments, DAV, Department of State. Right. Make yourself consistent and easy to find. And look at this right here. There's Michael, who just had his hand up there. He looks like, he actually sent me this. Hold on a second, let's see if I can, there it is. He's got a QR code if you want to reach out to him. Is that your email address, or? All of our social channels. So that's where that QR code goes to. But that's Michael's email address up there. I asked him to make a slide for me. He looks like the youngest real estate agent in Las Vegas. This guy knows his business, though, when it comes to social media. I mean, he looks young. I mean, but I don't know how he has all this experience. It's pretty incredible that we have this asset on our team. So, thank you, Michael. And when it comes to, again, social channels, our newest baby, as many of you know, is Twitch. And I'm going to invite our Assistant National Director of Communications, Kevin Miller, up to talk about Twitch for a second. Kevin.
All right, good morning, everybody. Let's see. All right, before we get in a little bit more about partnership that you heard during Cody's report yesterday, we're talking about a little bit about gaming, and why gaming. So, like a lot of people here, we know a lot of inactive members at DAV. Admittedly, I was one myself for many years before I came on professional staff. I've been a member, for several years before I moved to the DC area, and it was actually due to my online presence I got recruited onto the professional staff on the communications team. And so with that in mind, it was during the pandemic. I had moved from the Bay Area to the East Coast to DC. I didn't know anybody, and since I was an inactive member, I didn't join my local chapter. I didn't transfer my membership, and it was a tough transition, for a lot of people during the pandemic. And so what I did, what I'd always done, gaming was a big part of my life. During my deployments when I was in Iraq, gaming was something we did in our off time. What little time we did have is you couldn't spend all the time in the gym, so you needed another outlet, so gaming was one of them. And so it's something I continued with over the years, and in 2020, when I moved, I got into gaming and got involved with a group called Regiment, who had just also formed. It was founded by another Marine veteran who was just separated from the military prior to 2020. And same thing, he felt that separation from service, missed the connection, and he was actually a professional gamer before he went in the Marines. And he just had the idea, it was like, what can I do to reconnect and bring our folks back together? So he created Regiment, and I was just like, there wasn't really any other groups around virtually, and that I couldn't do anything in person, couldn't go to any monuments in DC, so it was really hard to meet people. So joined up and got involved with the group, and met veterans all around the country doing various things in their life and whatnot. And they started up Veterans Resources to just ancillary, connect folks to services and whatnot. So I got involved helping out with them here and there, always connecting the services. And then 3 years ago, I just celebrated my 3 years last week, picked up with DAV, and I really just started funneling them to our services and expanding in that. And so I'd worked with their founder for a while, and we've only met each other online. And so last summer, he actually came out to DC for a mental health conference. And so we finally linked up in person, and he's like, hey, I really want to know more about DAV. Can you tell me more about DAV? So brought him down to headquarters, we always do as good ambassadors. Tell him a little bit more about our brand and what we bring to the table, our experience, our history. And, he's like, man, I've been around, for, several years, been working with a lot of veterans groups. I didn't really realize how much DAV did. And I was like, I know, me either, until I came on staff. And, we do so much, it's hard to keep, comprehending. So he's just like, wow. He's like, and then, like every other vet, I talked to him, he's like, have you started your claim? No. He's like, I've been too busy, growing my business, doing this, just hustling, getting by, just, also suppressing everything, not going for his healthcare treatment. He's just like, haven't done it yet. It's just not in my wheelhouse. I'm like, you know what? That's what we're here for. That's our experience. Introduced him one of our service directors. He's like, I don't got the time. I'm always traveling. I'm like, don't worry. They'll hook you up. They'll get you all your appointments, work with your schedule, and get you on track. And so earlier this summer, he actually was awarded his compensation and got his claim. And so with that, we also referred him to Patriot Boot Camp to help get entrepreneurship resources to continue to expand his businesses, and got him into the fold of DAV. And with that, we started exploring about how to expand this partnership. And so recently, we just announced yesterday with the Cody that over the next several months, we're going to be working with them to connect their members to our programs and services. Right now, Regiment has about 95,000 members online, and only about a few hundred of them are DAV members. So, and a lot of them are younger, post 9/11 veterans, not only post 9/11, all generations, but primarily. But this is a good section for us to outreach to bring them to our service claims, to avoid claim sharks who are trying to proliferate online, to get them to our employment services, all the wraparound things we do, and get them connected in the fold. And of course, most of all, convert them to be DAV members, DAV volunteers, and active members of our community so we can grow our membership ranks and get back to that 1 million member mark. So with that, we're just going to continue to do that, and as part of over the next 12 months, we'll be working with them to spread awareness. We'll be hosting community game nights, tournaments, and collaborating for different things like PC giveaways, and working with to highlight different things. Like right now, we're actually working with one of our PSA ambassadors, Jason Pepper, who is a veteran who's visually impaired, and we're going to get him back into gaming. He's used to be very involved in World of Warcraft, and actually they do have accessible gaming for that. And we really want to highlight this about how veterans with disabilities can still participate in this and get involved, have fun, and use it as also a means of therapy. And to top it off, we're also working with the VA right now, as the VA has also proposed gaming as potentially being the next adaptive sports event to collaborate with us on, similar to the golf and winter sports clinics. So as this continues to advance, we hope to get more and more of you involved, continue to build out our partnerships, and most of all, connect more vets to our programs, services, and get them the help they need so they can change their lives. And that's really what it's all about, and appreciate all your time today. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. You know, when we hired Kevin, he's a Marine Corps infantryman. The main reason we hired him is just in case we ever needed to call in an airstrike. You know, most of the people we have are journalists. Turns out he's into gaming too, thank God. So double benefit there. Next, I want to talk about, if I can, there we go, our public service campaign, our PSAs. In the past, it has been Victories for Veterans, as many of you know. Last year, we had $81 million in donated media value. Dan was talking about this before. The success of this campaign, you know, truth be told, quite frankly, and needs to be told, a success that this man built, helped to build, or led the charge on, starting about 10 years ago. And you know, back in the day, if we had, you know, I don't know what, a couple 100,000, we'd be, you know, jumping for joy with our PSA campaign. And now to have $80 million in donated value is just, it's almost impossible to fathom. So it continues to do well, and it continues to do well because it's telling your stories, right? It's just we do a really good job of encapsulating the stories of service of our members. This time, though, we actually have some new PSA creative that we released this year, and for the first time, we re-released a set of PSA creative called My Veterans Victory. It's been distributed, and this PSA creative actually is a little bit different in that it focuses on a veteran and that veteran's either their caregiver or a family member. And of course, that dovetails very well with DAV caregiver support, but it took a little bit for it to kind of pick up, but now we are starting to see incredible results coming in on that as well. Going back to last year again, though, $81 million. I'll breeze through some of this stuff. Television PSAs. I want you to look at that donated media value. So the very bottom right-hand corner, $55 million comes from television. We're going to come back to that in a second because it's important and it's something that I'm going to need all of your help on. Radio PSAs, you know, they do very well as well, 2.8 million. And then out of home, how many of you have seen a DAV billboard anywhere around the country, somewhere, anywhere? Good, I'm glad to see that. Our out of home, again, continues to perform well. They're in airports, train stations, alongside roads, even in restrooms. I got in trouble when I tried to take a photo of that one, but they are sometimes, you will see them inside restrooms. Look, this is a photo I took. Actually, I went for a run on Thursday morning at 4:30 when it's about 145 degrees. It's the only time I could really could figure out a run. That's Michael Naranjo, though. I came across Michael Naranjo. He had a homeless person sleeping in front of him, so I think I woke him up, but it was good to get his picture out there. I love seeing those in the wild. And when you see them in the wild, please don't hesitate to share them with us. We absolutely love to see pictures of our PSAs out there. Let's see. There we go. That shows you, again, back in 2014 when Dan was working on this project way back when, look at that growth in terms of both impressions on the left and donated value on the right. It's absolutely incredible. That 2022 actually was Bally Sports Network is specifically responsible for that huge bump then, and it was right as they were going out of business. They just, I guess people quit advertising on there, so they just started running our PSAs nonstop. So it was a little bit of an anomaly, but again, DAV PSAs, they've aired more than 1.3 million times on television alone. In total, they've generated more than, I think, I don't know where we are right now. I'm sorry. We got to be close to $1 billion. I know we're approaching the $1 billion mark. And again, they're all powered by your stories, and that's why they're so successful. And this is where we're going to stop backpatting, and I'm going to start asking you guys for help, because these are the kind of things that kind of keep us up at night. This is a changing landscape of network television. Again, that 55 million of 81 million from 2024 that I was talking about before comes from here, from this landscape. In 1983, just over 40 years ago, 50 companies controlled 90% of all media. 50 companies. Now it's 6. There's 6 of them right down there, and that is a result of consolidation. DAV has good relationships with many of those networks. I think probably 4 of 6 of those we work with. But still, it means that we have to show up as a united force, and that means locally. We have to continue to build relationships locally. Again, this is on the left-hand side. You see at the top that black line. It's black up there too. That is dropping like a rock. That is network television. That's CBS, ABC, NBC, the stuff I grew up on, right? That's what everything was on. That blue line, that's taken off like a rocket from the bottom left to the top right. That's streaming, right? That's Netflix, that's Amazon Prime, that's Hulu. And there is no FCC mandate for any of those stations to share PSAs. So we're kind of locked out of that game. Either we're paying to be on those stations, which we don't do with PSAs, or we're just not on them. So this is where I need your help. Doreen asked me to put this slide. You guys know Doreen. She asked me to put this slide of Tom Cruise. She's a huge fan. If you guys want to talk to her after the seminar this morning, she would love to chat with you about Tom Cruise if you have the opportunity. We need your help getting PSAs on regional and local television stations. A few years ago, I was approached by the incoming commander of the state of Wisconsin. Look at these icons from the state of Wisconsin. I love Wisconsin, right? Where else? You got the Badgers. You got Al LaBelle. Here's Al LaBelle sitting down there. Again, let's clap for Al. Absolute legend. I couldn't be more grateful, though, for that bit of innovation when they approached me. Again, it's a wonderful state, veteran service. They have a great football team, as you know. Let's see, where's that pic? There they are. They have a great football team. No, is that? Oh, I'm losing the crowd? All right. You keep booing, I'm going to put a half-naked picture of you up here next year, like I had to endure. Seriously, though, Department of Wisconsin, they came with an idea. The department commander that year came with an idea. Provide us with a list of all the television, radio stations, and print outlets that are running DAV PSAs in our state, which we have. We have a detailed list for every state. We run reports every month. And they took this information and they divided up the state into different quadrants, however they assigned it, and then they had different people who were responsible for if a station was running our PSAs, if a newspaper was sharing our PSAs, they reached out to them and they wrote them a letter and they said thank you, and they let them know what that does for our organization. Not just for our organization, what that's doing for more importantly, the veterans in their community, which they want to help. And it helps to generate coverage, right? Earned media. Once we start building these relationships with these newspapers, it's not, and radio and television stations, it's not just about PSAs. It actually starts a relationship that helps build coverage as well. So they again, divided it up and started doing that. Again, we've had, I think Texas has approached us. I've had a couple of other states, and I apologize, I can't remember them off the top of my head. Indiana, I think, that are doing the same thing. Every one of you can do the exact same thing. Reach out to us. We can provide you with this list, and we can even provide you with format letters for sharing with these stations. You just put your name on it, your information on it, and on you go. We have a PSA toolkit that will help you pitch. This information the information in this toolkit, it's got everything about how to access materials, best practices for conducting station outreach. Again, all the stuff that you need to do what we were just talking about doing. You can check with, let me see. You can find that obviously on our website. In the members resources section is where you're going to find it. The members resources page, where all the stuff that you need as member leaders can be found, and as volunteers and as leaders in chapters, departments. And again, while I'm talking about this section, if I could, this has all the information that you need. While I'm talking about this section, on the right-hand side there, you'll see it says memos, member leader memos. These are memos that are sent out from the national organization to our member leaders. We hear from you frequently. Like, I didn't know that we had a partnership with this organization. I did not hear about Military Appreciation Night, Golden Corral, being on a different night this year. Everybody aware of that? You guys aware of that? Yeah, it's on a different night. It's on a Tuesday night this year, right? It's on Veterans Day this year, as opposed to a Monday. It's been Monday forever. Now it's on Tuesday. So we put these memos out, and sometimes you guys don't get a hold of them, don't see them. You can come here. I suggest that you set a reminder in Outlook or whatever you use for your calendar, and set a reminder so that you can come and check that page once a week and see what we've sent out, because I feel like we're sending out memos from the national level at a clip. We send out a couple of 3, 4, or 5 sometimes a week, so check those out there. The publicity guide. Again, when you're working with and engaging local media, it's in that members resources section. If you have questions about how to talk about this organization, we need to be talking the same way as much as possible. You can find it in that publicity guide. You start here, and then if you run into any snags, do not hesitate to reach out to our team. That's what we're here for. And then your stories. Again, I've talked about the importance of your stories, and so Dan was talking about Ken David, but I want to tell a real quick story before I wrap up about Colonel Smitty Harris. And I don't know if you guys have heard that name before. He was a pilot in the United States Air Force in the Vietnam War. In 1965, he was bombing a bridge in northern Vietnam, and his F-105 was shot down by enemy artillery. When he was captured, he became the 6th American prisoner of war of Vietnam. And he spent nearly 8 years, 2,871 days, 2,871 days in a prison camp, the Hanoi Hilton, which I know a lot of you have heard of. He was released in 1973, and he was reunited with his family. He went on to become not only successful in business, but was also a very proud DAV member. And until the day that he died, unfortunately, in June. I found out about him being a member after he died, because someone from his department reached out to us and said that, hey, we had this, this famous, Hanoi Hilton veteran who died. Please do not wait until you lose a veteran in your chapter to tell us about their story. There are Smitty Harris's and Ken David's in chapters across the country, and they're doing incredible things. They have done incredible things, and we just need to know about it. You can share it there, the mystory@dav.org, the feedback at dav.org, all the ways that you have of getting in touch with our department. Please share your stories with us. And I want to, again, thank you for your time. We have at least a couple of minutes. But look, I'm sorry. See that professional photograph I shared of Dan and I? Look at us. I'll show you how it's done there, Mr. Clare. So if you guys have any questions, I think we got about 5 minutes. We can take some questions if you have them. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Sebastian Taffanel, Chapter 33, Charlottesville, Virginia. Kudos to you guys. I've only been in the organization since January, but I can tell you that I receive 2 other VSO magazines, and yours is the one that I actually read. I'm getting tired of getting advertisements about, help me, I've fallen, I can't get up, and a bunch of other things that really don't apply to my generation, much less the post 9/11 generation. I just want to make you aware, you guys probably already know this, but just to benefit of others, one thing that I learned the hard way with their organization is if you make your Facebook page public, that means anybody can pretty much post whatever they want. So you need a moderated page. So that would be helpful. The other thing I recently ran into, now that I've fully retired and I have time, I'm on Reddit. which is a very popular social media forum, there is an incredibly busy and active subreddit called Veterans Benefits. And I would just encourage us to think about having a virtual NSO, someone who can go in there and actually speak truth, because there's a lot of claim sharks that are, undercover that are on there, and there's a lot of folks that are really putting a whole lot of misinformation. And personally, it's hurting our veterans, and that's not a good thing. The other platform, just for your benefit, you guys probably know about it, but there's a lot of veterans, especially post-9/11 veterans, on Discord. And so that would be two platforms that I would encourage you guys to take a look at, chat with you afterwards on that particular point. And there was one more. Oh, thank you. How can we set up our own link tree? That might be something that would be a good little memo. But for the benefit of the chapters,
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
what I'm asking. So anyways, that's it. And I appreciate the beginning of the presentation. I'm not offended. It was NSFW for sure. And I appreciate that warning for the rest of us. Thank you.
Yeah,
thanks.
thank you. Go ahead, Dan.
I have one thing on the Reddit. DAV looked at Salesforce to do kind of a similar thing on benefits. The concern we had is that benefits information evolves. So we could have a professional national service officer making, comments and getting advice, and then we're put in a position where we're essentially publishing whatever BS someone else puts out there, and when the laws change, it's hard to keep up with. We are monitoring those things, and Rob will probably speak a little bit more to that. I would just say, though, that also we have all these people in this room who are DAV leaders who have the information, and it's not hard for y'all to get on Reddit and counter some of the BS, but you're right about keeping on top of that and the rest of the stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, I use my 15 Reddit accounts to downvote a lot of stuff as much as I can. But yeah, absolutely, Dan's right. It's a little bit of a challenge from an organizational perspective to engage on Reddit. They're pretty good at shutting down things like brigading and some of the other things that are really would be beneficial to us as an organization to if we got a bunch of people to follow what we were saying and to do certain things on that page. They're pretty good at shutting it down. They have algorithms that are pretty sophisticated, but we are absolutely been talking to Michael a lot about that lately. So great idea. Thank you so much.
One other quick comment on that is social networking. It's meet the new boss, same as the old boss. It used to be free. We used to be able to get huge impressions out of that. Now everything's monetized. The more you get on and share DAV content, the more effective it is. The more you share DAV content, we actually bypass the route to our members and bypass the downfall of social media, which is trust horizon. So you getting on and sharing our stuff makes a huge difference in your communities, and it gets people involved. And ma'am?
Oh, real quick about the Discord. So our partnership with Regiment will be utilizing their Discord, which has over 90,000 members, and we'll be utilizing our CSOs and DSOs to help out their members and connect them to their services. And also, we do have a private Discord server for our DAV members who need help or want to get involved in our gaming initiative. And if you need any information, just connect me after this.
I swear to God, you're not a plant. I love to hear those questions you have because it's like, oh, good, this is something we're actually looking at. So I felt like, oh, good, we're ahead of something for once. Go ahead, ma'am.
Well, hi. Bethany Segsveen, Department of Minnesota, Chapter 40. Sure, I can speak up, no problem. Good morning. My question is with the publicity guide, awesome. And yesterday, Jared Wells was talking about with membership, having that, a quick tip sheet or like a one sheet that we can pass out to members and make it available that here is, your elevator pitch. A lot of people don't understand that. What is a 3-sentence way for us to describe, like, quickly and accurately who we are and what we do? And this is a conversation that I have with our members at our volunteer events, at all of these things, because people ask, what is DAV? And the answer is so varied and, a little disjointed. So what tools are there available or can we create that is very easily consumable and easy to distribute to members. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a fantastic idea, and right when you started kind of laying out your case, Dan I heard him say, "Yeah, I've heard that." You know, it's like, so that lets me know that he's probably talked to me about it, and it's something that we definitely need to work on. So thank you so much for that comment. Yes, sir.
Jeff, Chapter 9, Yuba City, California. Making a annual or biannual, just one sheet paper, links, basic bullet points about tags and stuff like that with a phone number for the chapters that actually do want to get involved, while they still need to take the step to get involved. But an annual thing about our updates and everything of the way it pitches, you know, like telling the chapter, even if you don't want to watch the video, go to the site, turn the video on, hit like, and just let it run in the background. Because that hits. I just now found out that we have a video, whatchamacallit, on YouTube a month ago. My algorithm never hit it. And I study, research, and everything, and never ran across the DAV's thing that's been going on for years.
Yeah. Okay.
And it just happened to hit. So just looking at that aspect, because I know what the background is about. So just a basic thing, because somebody in that community is going to be able to look at it and explain it to them, or if they can't explain it to them, be able to do it. And also put out the bullet that make sure the entire link information and all that type of information that goes out to all chapters.
Yeah.
So when people are doing QR codes, they know what they're looking for. Okay, and then
Yeah.
each chapter get a QR code of everything you're saying
Great.
annually. So that way, and then when you do an update, just send out the update.
If you could, Michael, would you mind meeting with the gentleman afterwards? Yeah, I would love to talk with you a little bit more to get some of those ideas down. I'm sorry, I can't, ma'am, we're out of time. No, I'm just kidding. Jennifer, go ahead.
Hey now. Okay, that popped out. Good morning, Jennifer from Chapter 66 in New Jersey. My question is actually for Kevin. I am a Navy veteran who suffers with PTSD, MST, and I have caused generational trauma to my children. And I'm actually really grateful that I have the opportunity to heal some of that trauma that I've caused. And I was wondering, Regiment sounds like a really amazing community. Is that open to the dependents and caregivers of veterans?
I'll get you the definitive on that. I believe so with a lot of their stuff, because with the things we're working on, especially with the VA and the VA research right now, is using gaming as a form for reconnecting with the families. Is they're actually studying it on a macro level right now, especially when veterans or service members are coming back for deployment. Is one of the things kids are into gaming, and so one thing they are using right now to reconnect with their children is gaming. Is finding something fun, a commonality to get back into and also get back into that routine, especially when the parents have been out of their children's lives for a little bit. It finds another means to connection. So even if they don't have it currently, as we continue to expand, we'll try to make availability to also family members, and we do have our own private Discord too, and we'll be expanding that to our auxiliary as well as we move forward.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because I have 2 older kids and they seem to make really good friendships and relationships online, and they're not always willing to talk public or come to things like this. So for them to have a community that they can, relate with other or dependents of veterans, I think would be pretty awesome. So thank you.
Thank
you so much, Jennifer. And that's actually the multiple times I've heard that from other people here at DAV at the convention. Appreciate that.
I'm sorry, we will take our conversation out into the hallway.
Okay.
If communications team, would you please raise your hands here really quickly? And there's some in the back as well. We're all going to be heading out into the hallway. We can all talk to you. I'm sorry about that. I don't know if you guys seen John Kleindienst. He's massive. We're afraid of him. We got to get out of here before he has to start. Thank you all for your time.